days, like I own jets. Like that's like a time machine, right? Like
time saver. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do software, then you build a brand around it. But the center is software. You look, Mark Zuckerberg, even Warren Buffett now plays in software.
Welcome back to the Kris Krohn Show. I've got Tai Lopez, and I got to tell you something. Like Tai, it's awesome having you here. I'm actually surprised that you're here because, bro, you were like the big deal, and then you like disappeared for a couple years, and now you're back.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, just a little bit. Who is Tai Lopez? But then, dude, why all of a sudden are you back?
Yeah, I needed a break, man. Being in front of social media, it's funny. Everybody wants to be an influencer now, but sometimes when you're there, you're like, oh man, it's a lot. You know, you get all the voices of the world. So COVID came, and so it was a natural time. I went and lived on my farm during that to get away. I was up in New York, and I was like, I'm going to my farm. And it was just a natural thing to kind of take time off. So I say I hibernated my brands. You know,
okay.
Brands don't die. I just spoke at that Utah conference, and people still, you know, it hasn't been 20 years. It's been 2 years, 3 years. But I'm back now. I think the power of a personal brand, you know, if you ever read that Peter Thiel book, 0 to 1, The Billionaire, he says, the basic book I can sum up, which is only do business in monopolies. I know you were telling me before the show, you kind of had a monopoly on this single family idea, and you make a hell of a lot of profit that way. So in general, though, the United States makes monopolies illegal, except for one area. A personal brand is a legal monopoly. Nobody can say, hey, Tony Robbins, you know, you can't be Tony Robbins. He can be whatever he can be himself. And if people resonate with Tony Robbins, you can't compete with that. That audience person who just says, I click with this guy. Now, there's substitutes, but there's no perfect competition with a personal brand. So I always knew the power of it. I never wanted to hibernate it permanently. And so flipped a coin, and now's the time to come back.
I love it. I love it. Now, listen, you used your personal brand over the years for a number of things.
Yes.
I remember at one point when I was following you and you had a lot going on, I'd be like, dude, this dude is always doing the flashy, look at my $1 billion house and look at my, my nice vehicles. And it was just all this. And I know whenever I've done anything like that, the reality is like I get two kinds of things. I get the fans that are like, that is so awesome.
Yeah.
And then you get the haters.
Yes.
Right? Out of curiosity, was that like part of your brand? Like, was that strategy that you would kind of do some of that with all the different products and things that you were moving in the digital, everything? Like, tell me about that.
So it's funny because some people say, oh, Tai, you were fake it before you make it. You got a car and you got a Lamborghini and Ferrari and a big house in order to build your personal brand. I started building my personal brand in 2012, 2013, but I owned nightclubs in 2004. It was one of my first deals. I did an M&A deal, took over a set of nightclubs in North Carolina. I had my first badass Italian car in 2006. So I was actually living that lifestyle. I had a big Hollywood.
So you're saying that was actually authentic to you?
6 years before, I had a big mansion up in Hollywood Hills in 2009. Before, here in my garage was 2015. So now, so that's the facts. In terms of strategy, I realized that, hey, you got to get attention however you can. And actually, it's funny. I filmed a lot of stuff every day, right? But what goes viral is the cars, the flash.
It's true.
But it wasn't my main thing I was filming. Like I was shooting sometimes 200 snaps a day on Snap. I was one of the first guys on Snap. And I had, I'd sometimes get 18 million views a story. In the first view would get 18 million. And most of it wasn't flash, but the stuff that people reposted and commented and went viral. So you have like this bias that the world has. So if you put out 10 pieces of content where you're talking down to earth and one piece of crazy content, people are going to all see the crazy content because it goes viral. So it's skewed, I would say.
So in years past, you've promoted a lot of different kind of products, right?
Yeah.
I mean, lifestyle driven, wealth driven, business, real estate, things like that.
Yeah.
When you look at your history with all of that, what products felt like they were the most in alignment with your brand or who you are as a person? Like, what are you the most proud of, and what are you still going after today?
That's a great question. I would say, look, when I was 16 years old, I was thinking through life, and I remember I wrote a letter to my step-grandfather, and I said, life's too complicated. It's too confusing. you got to pick what religion, what you do for a career, college, who you marry, your diet. And I said, can you just give me all the answers? He was a smart guy. My step-grandpa was a kind of famous scientist. And so I said, give me advice. He wrote me a letter back. The world's too complicated. No one person will have all the answers for you. So at 16, I realized I got to go find a set of mentors. So the products that resonate most with me are the ones that replicate what my mentors taught me. 67 Steps was one of my first big digital. I'm working on a book version of it now. So that, but I also did SMMA, taught people. I kind of launched the social media marketing agency concept at scale. I actually own the trademark for SMMA. That felt good because my mentors not only taught me mindset, like 67 Steps, but they also gave me practical businesses. Joel Salatin, my first mentor, at 19, I launched a business with him. So I like to give people business ideas. So I don't know. I mean, I've experimented with every product that went big. It's funny, the things that go big are the ones that align with you and the market. The economy will tell you. So I've had ideas that align with me. You push them out, they don't convert that well. But 67 Steps, SMMA, these were big ones. And a lot of my I've had almost 5% of the world's watched my YouTube videos. It's nuts. It's like I'm at 2.5 billion minutes watched, and people resonate all over the place. The other big thing I'm proud of, I think, actually, as I talk, I'll give you the answer. I came up with this concept in 2013, the 4 pillars of the good life. And it's when I had made money and realized that money alone doesn't make you feel good. So health, wealth, love, happiness. So my true fans that watch me the most, I was just in Malaysia, and all these Malaysian guys came up to me like, 4 pillars, health, wealth, love, happiness. So to me, the purpose of life is how do you take health, wealth, love, happiness, and have the perfect ratio? It's easy to get the ratio off.
So you're talking about balance.
Balance, exactly.
What is your philosophy on balance? Because, by the way, we live in a world that says don't exist.
Right.
Busy, busy, busy.
Right.
Like, tell me your experience.
So I think people are born with genetic propensities. Some people love making money. And so health, wealth, love, happiness, I think it's okay to have a primary driver. And it's probably logical to have a primary driver. I think some people love fitness. My dad was a pro bodybuilder. Like, if my dad was my son, if the roles were reversed, I would have said to my dad, okay, you're the first pillar. That's your primary goal. But don't forget the other 3 pillars. Keep some wealth. My dad went to prison. He was a drug dealer. So he knew how to make money, but I would have been like, if he was like, learn how to make some wealth without selling cocaine. Love. My dad was married 6 times. So maybe he needed a mentor on how to find love.
He needed a love.
But my dad was happy. So my dad had the 2 pillars.
So you had the health and the happiness.
He had the health and the happiness. And
just
the wealth,
love and the money.
The wealth. Now, he told me, he's from Harlem. At one point, he's like, Tai, we had so much money we couldn't deposit it. We just had big rooms of cash. But that's what he went to prison for. He said, in 1960s, I would tip a valet in Manhattan $1,000. Now, in today's dollars, that's like 10 G's.
Yeah.
He said, everywhere I went in the city, people would say, Mr. Lopez. But that was short-lived because, my mom remembers before I was born, my mom's always like, Tai, I remember when the FBI kicked the door down when I was asleep, took your dad away. And so that took him away from wealth. So I would say maybe my dad's worst was love. He wasn't close. He had 6 kids. And
would you then say that a person should look at which of the 4 the weakest at and make sure they get some extra mentorship? You're
a smart guy. I agree with that.
What did you do when you took your 2-year sabbatical?
I worked on some of the other things. Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes when you're thriving in one, you may need, I like that, sabbatical. That's a good word. You should take maybe a year or 2 off, just like professors do. And that sabbatical is all about, how do I do the other stuff? Because for sure, I remember I was happy. One of the happiest years of my life where I felt like I was really balanced was 2013. And 2013, I had started on the internet. I built my first funnel in 2001. Okay, so I've been building funnels. But when it really started to take off was probably 2009. By 2013, I was making real money, but it wasn't so big. I was a local celebrity, okay? So I used to throw big house parties in Hollywood. That's how I know Dan Fleischman from yesterday's event. I would throw the biggest Hollywood parties, but I wasn't known outside of Hollywood. Just like I wasn't a celebrity on movies, but I was known in Hollywood. So I was happy. I had, you had the social life. I was making good money. I was making 7-figure type, mid 7 figures, I think. And I had a couple businesses, but I had time. And so when 2015 hit, and even in 2014, I really started to become well known. Your happiness definitely can go. I know some of the top influencers. They're not always happy. I know, I'm in business with guys on the Forbes list. There is some truth to more money, more problems. So I think a sabbatical, like you said, isn't a bad idea.
Check this out. I heard you spent 2.5 years living with the Amish.
Yes.
Worked at a leper colony in India, and then helped Joel pioneer grass-fed sustainable agriculture on polyface farms.
Yeah.
Why'd you do all that?
Man, there's 4 types of hormones that drive humans. I'm a dopamine novelty-driven guy. So I have a brother who's what I call structure-based serotonin person. He's not excited by doing 10 different things in 10 years. So you got to know yourself. For me, when I was young, I didn't have that good of a childhood, kind of a troubled childhood. And my dad was in prison when I was born, single mom. She got remarried, didn't have much money. I graduated high school in a mobile home. So going to the Amish actually, in hindsight, the statistics now show the Amish are the happiest people in the world. I didn't know that, but I knew I'd never been around a family that didn't fight.
Oh.
And so I went to live with the Amish for like a month in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I was like, these are the nicest people. I'm not going to leave. And I stayed there for 2.5 years. So the Amish were maybe stepping back into the 1800s where the world was more sane and family oriented and you got a farm and kids. So I think I did other stuff. I didn't know how to make money then. But then when I left the Amish, I was like, I got to make money. I either can live like the Amish, no electricity. You can make 10 grand at the Amish and do well. But once I came out in the real world, I said, I got to make money. And that's where the challenges begin.
You speak all over the world. Favorite places that you've been to? The people you like to really connect with?
I live around the world now. I got like 5 I rotate around 5 places, but I like Scandinavia a lot. I live in Sweden, Denmark, Norway. I've lived there since really on and off since 2016. So the people there, they actually remind me a teeny bit of the Amish. They're like blonde-haired Amish. So I like there. I like Brazil. Brazil people,
they're happy people too.
They just did a global study on the most mental illness of any country.
And the
least.
least.
Guess what do you think's the most?
Probably U.S.
No.
It wasn't?
U.S. actually is kind of not as bad as you think.
Okay, no, I don't know.
Pakistan, Middle East gets and then Eastern Europe, like Russia.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of, it doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means in terms of the classic standards of narcissism, Machiavellian psychopathy, these countries score higher.
Yeah.
Brazil scores the lowest mental instability. So,
dude, they're happy people. They're fit people.
Yeah, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I've always said I train with this guy, Higa Machado. He's like a giant. He's like 6'4", 290, coral belt. And he's just a jolly guy. And I always think Brazil is like the place where you have all these guys that can beat everybody up, but they're all laughing and, so I like to go. Yeah, I think you should pick countries and cities based on mental instability. Utah's a relatively mentally stable place. It's a better place than most of the U.S.
I have never once in my entire life contemplated where I wanted to live or travel based on the mental stability. But based on what's happened in the last few years, I'm like, geez, wow, that actually kind of makes sense.
Have you lived in Utah? You've been based here?
I grew up in Seattle.
Oh, okay.
I'm based in Utah, but my wife and I have traveled 50 countries. So we've seen a lot of the world. We travel quite a bit.
What made you end up here?
We both came out here for college.
Okay.
And we met and got married. And then by the time I graduated, I had my first business just rocking and rolling. And when it all came down to it, we live in a little mountain community, kind of up in the mountains. We're probably a little bit reclusive.
Yeah.
Social media provides more than enough opportunity to express, out there. And so we have a couple of jets. And so we use that for just kind of how we get away. But when we're in Utah, we don't go anywhere. We just hunker down in our facility and just live a quiet life.
That's good.
Yeah. We got 4 kids. And the mental health crisis definitely like scourged through our house.
Really?
Yeah, just this huge awareness of what it's like in today's world, especially with social media and kids.
Yeah.
And just there's a lot of dangers, a lot of reports coming out on like what's healthy and what's not.
Yeah.
And man, when you and I grew up, life was simple.
Yeah.
And for them, man.
Even 10 years ago.
10
it's
5 years
2013. Like people weren't, you have to. One thing I learned from the Amish is very interesting. There's a story, a book where a guy came to the Amish from the outside world, a scientist, and he said, why do you guys restrict technology? Like, you could have a tractor, but you farm with horses. And the Amish guy, I don't remember his exact words, but he said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so just because you can be fully connected to the world doesn't mean you should. Just because kids can have a phone and be connected all day, it doesn't mean they should. So the Amish make rules that go, we're going to make technology, we're going to allow technology, but only if we agree as a community that this helps us more than it hurts us.
Yeah.
And modern society, just carte blanche, anything new is accepted with very little. I'm not a big fan of government intervention, but like at a local level, the ultimate local level is the family and the small village kind of concept. People got to make good decisions about what they let in their lives, and especially for kids. I don't even know what's going to happen to like next generation of kids. Too connected. It's actually hijacking. These social media companies are drug dealers. I mean, they can pull dope. TikTok is precision algorithm to extract dopamine, but that makes you like a coke addict. You're just like average human now has a 5.5 second attention span. A goldfish is 6 seconds. I don't know how scientists figured that out, but we have a low. You see a little goldfish in a bowl that has a better attention span with its little brain than humans.
That's amazing. So, kind of curious. You had a couple years break, and you're kind of firing your brand back up, your machine back up. You've had time to think about like what your next is.
Yeah.
What do you feel like that is? What direction are you going in?
Well, I think the trends are. I mean, if you're a beginner, I think there's a certain set of trends. If you're intermediary, if you're advanced in terms of you've been doing this game a long time, I think the natural progression is into like media companies. If you look at Ben Shapiro, a friend of mine, he built out Daily Wire, which is Ben Shapiro. He's obviously the face, but he now has Jordan Peterson. He's developed. He has. So I launched this. It's not a course or nobody can pay to be in. It's my Syndicate influence network where I'm taking 150 of the most influential people and doing kind of like a media company. We cross collaborate, go on each other's social media. So I think a powerful thing for advanced people listening is to form networks, syndicates of other influential people. I think that's the future. No one person's going to be able to win. One country can't beat an alliance of countries. That's where Germany messed up. One of the ways they messed up in World War II is Hitler basically against the world. And you have to team up. So I think teaming up is what I'm doing more. Taking equity in companies, holding company structure I've been doing for a long time. You can use your influence. So that, for more advanced people listening, I think that's the future. If you're intermediary or beginner, I think it's a totally different strategy for go forward,
So I want to see if I hear this the right way. You're putting together a more advanced network.
Yes.
150, in your opinion, some of the most influential people. Cross-pollinate across the channel. And then you're looking for more sophisticated deal flow out of that?
Yeah. I mean, I know how to follow deal flow. I go to New York a lot. I'm super connected into the whole New York world. So that world, it's always good to have connections. But I think where you get 150 people, that number comes from Robin Dunbar. He's the scientist who discovered Dunbar's number of 150. Humans do best in groups of 150. So I think when you're more advanced, you always have to it's harder to find people on your level. So you got to go upstream. I wouldn't say I'm forming this just for deal flow, but it'll be 20% of the benefit. I think it'll be like 20% of the benefit of this network, this syndicate will be deal flow. 20% will just be camaraderie. 20% will be sharing contacts, like, this is a good lawyer for this. 20% will be, I think, advice on non-money making things. Like, hey, I had dinner once with Steve Ballmer. He's worth 70, now he's a $100 billion guy, built Microsoft. And most of my conversation is just me and him for 2 hours was on how does he do work-life balance as being, he was a CEO of Microsoft for 20 years, but he has happy kids. I like him. So I think 20% will be business conversation. Then the other 20% will just be miscellaneous. So I see this group as like multifaceted. And I would encourage everybody. When I started my brand, did a lot of parties at my house once a month. I'd have about 150 people there. To this day, some of the power of my network is people that I met just in an informal setting, not so much, at a networking party, just a party.
So you're almost putting together like a think tank, right? Like
think tank, yep.
You're putting together your own mastermind.
Yes.
Is this for the public? Is this for sale? Is this just for you?
I have a mastermind called my 300 group, but so you can pay to get in that. This syndicate is all invite only. So I'm just invite, and I'm putting a combination. You put celebrities in there. You put some you put some billionaires in there. You put maybe a Forbes list guy or two. You put somebody who is a pro athlete. So I want a diverse group of 150. But that one, if I make it for pay, it just cheapens it.
Yeah.
Some of these guys I go to, I'm not going to go to somebody who's my peer who is worth $1 billion and be like, will you pay 50 grand to be on my mat? I don't want to do that. So I just decided that syndicate is just invite only. My mastermind, which also has a lot of value, but you can't do a mastermind where every month you meet up with your mastermind people and you expect Steve Ballmer to come every time. He's not going to come. But with my syndicate, we do fun stuff. So it's like, we're going to go golf. You might get one of those guys golfing, but people that are mega successful, the people that will eventually be trillionaires, at this point, they've already made money. They're looking for fun. So my syndicate will be more fun. Syndicate Influence Network. Strangely enough, that stands for SIN.
Okay.
S-I-N. So I'm not saying we'll be doing sinful things, but we'll be, like I'm doing it in Vegas next week. Sure. We're just going to go golf.
That's cool.
Not that simple, yeah.
So,
since we're Utah, I thought I brought up the sinful part of
deal
things.
Flow, you got to be talking probably mostly like some private equity plays.
Yeah, deal flow, distress stuff. I also do high-level mentoring. I've got a guy who's $3 billion. He's the largest landowner in Europe. So a guy like that, I get deal flow through. I mean, he owns insanity millions of square feet, of acres actually. So guys like that, I'll connect into New York, and there's deal flow. But I like distress. You know what? My favorite thing to buy. I started buying businesses in 2004. I did this nightclub deal. I did this deal in 2013. I bought up 2 business partners, hired me as their mentor because they were fighting. And I just realized halfway through my coaching sessions, these 2 dudes are never going to like each other. There was bad blood. So I said, I'll buy you out. And the other guy goes, great, buy out. I hate this guy. But I said, I'm not going to give, it was a small business. I was making a couple mil. I said, I'm going to buy you out for like 500 grand, but I'll pay you over 50 months. I'll give you 10 grand a month. The guy was so glad to be out of it. He said, great. So I wired him 10 grand. Then all I did was turn on email marketing. They didn't know how to do email marketing. So I took one business skill from online, and we did 250,000 extra net that month. So I paid myself 125 because I own it. I put 10 grand in, pulled 125 out 10 days later. 6 months later, sold the business back to the guy, the other partner. So I realized a great play is take some skill that only you have, apply it across businesses that need that skill. Digital marketing, email, So
smart.
That's the play.
What's got you most excited about life right now?
For right now, man, that's a good question. What has me the most excited? I like living around the world. I have like 5. So I have like my farms. So I'll rotate I call everybody's got to find their travel circadian rhythm. Circadian rhythm is more when you go to bed, when you wake up. But I think people have a travel. So I've tested mine. I like to be plays about 15 days. Then I start to get a little antsy. So I go to my farms. I'm going to 15 days. Then I drive to my farm's a little bit away from the big airport, and then I drive, hit Scandinavia, be there for about 15 days, Sweden, Denmark. Then I loop back through a big city, London, where I have a base. That's my 3rd stop. And then I'll come back to, Vegas, kind of just keep rotating. So that I like it. I mean, I like coming. I mean, I'm also interested. It's fun to come back with my personal brand. I got to see Russell Brunson yesterday. I haven't seen him in a long time. See all these people that I've all these guys. And I like meeting new people like you that I know are huge, but I haven't had time to meet. So.
What's up, Kris Krohn here. I am pausing my own podcast to make sure that you have my cell phone number. Because as you're listening and thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could text Kris and ask him a real estate question or a business question, a marriage question, a health question, I got news for you. The phone number is right here. It's 385-217-3477. Save this in your phone and literally start texting me right now. Just drop your name and say, hey, Kris, it's whoever you are, and ask me a simple question. Let's go.
It's fun, man. I'm a pretty social guy. I like social as long as people are smart.
Okay, I like it.
You're a smart guy, so it's fun to meet you. Okay. I don't like meeting a lot of people that are dumb. That's frustrating.
Can you tell me about dumb?
That's a good question. I had this woman asked me yesterday when I was out there, what's the definition of dumb? Do you believe in IQ? Well, I'm like, I know what she was trying to do. She was trying to twist it and say, well, there's many kinds of IQ. There's athletic intelligence and there's emotional. But my thing is, we don't have to twist vocabulary. Call a thing what it is. When we say people are smart, we mean brain moves fast, processing, can remember stuff, can synthesize ideas quickly that other people can't. But I don't think smart people are I know a lot of, you can be a failure and be smart without a doubt. There's lots of high IQ failures because success is not single faceted. You need like 5. They've done studies on, one of my mentors is Dr. David Buss. He's done a lot of, it's like the preeminent evolutionary psychologist. It's a lot of things that make you successful. For sure, there's not one self-made billionaire that I know or have read about that's not above pretty high IQ. Elon Musk is probably in the 150s. All these Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. But there's many people in the 150s that don't succeed at all. So I think you got to round yourself out as a person. They say that, I was just talking to Raj about this. The science, it looks like, and we're still learning, but it looks like the top science shows here's the things that make people hyper successful, specifically in making money. If we count money as success, financial success. Number 1, crazy levels of physical energy. They actually call it hypomania. Hypomania, it means you basically never tired. Now, when you hit the bed, you fall asleep, but the second you wake up, you have double the energy of the average human. Hypomania.
Hypermania. So
it's hypo, like H-Y-P-O. Yeah, hypomania. Then number 2, if you look at the stats, high IQ is definitely correlated with self-made success, specifically billionaires. 3rd, experience in direct sales, knowing how to be persuasive. I think it was 75% of self-made billionaires had a big chunk of their formative years in direct. Mark Cuban's like, I sold garbage bags door to door, as a teenager. Right. The 4th thing, though, high levels of conscientiousness. So conscientiousness is a word that breaks into 4. You have diligence, hard worker, perfectionist, that means can be detailed when needed, organized, that means pre-planned, and prudent, which means wise, making good decisions. So conscientiousness, extremely correlated with success. So sloppy people in general, you're probably not a sloppy person. I can tell by your conscientious by looking around here. Then next you have a trait that is called low agreeableness. Wealthy people are, I call them warlords. I've done business.
They're not people pleasers.
Yeah, but they even go beyond. I'm in business with multiple Forbes list people, negotiated deals against these guys. Warlords, they're Genghis Khan. And probably, I was talking to Dr. David Buss this morning about this, because the last one is high risk takers.
Yeah.
Okay. The last 2, which is being low agreeable and risk taker, is probably high testosterone. But it's not necessarily you test your blood. Testosterone's complex. In the womb, you can look at digit index ratio on the hand. You can see the in utero, when your personality is being formed very early, you get a shot of testosterone. People's testosterone now is all messed up from plastics and all this kind of junk food, but there are high testosterone people. Even Bill Gates, who doesn't look like a high testosterone guy. If you look at his behavior, Mark Zuckerberg, these are extremely high testosterone driven people. I don't know if they'll score like a dude who's on trend and is at 3,000 in their blood, but so that's the last one. These last 2, low agreeableness and aggressive, go together. So fortune favors the bold.
Mean suckers.
They're pretty rough. But I'll tell you, they have their charm when they know.
Yeah.
I would say the best word is I like low agreeableness. You can't just go up. You negotiating a deal with a billionaire, you can't say, you know what, this will be more fair. And let's tweak this a little in my favor. Hey, you're going to have to give to get anything. You're either going to have to. I have a friend. I knew a guy met years ago. Him and 5 guys, they built the porn industry. For good or bad, these guys were the guys out of Montreal that built porn. And he's a super sharp businessman. And he once told me, Tai, all empires are built with blood, sweat, and violence. And I remember him telling me that and thinking, no, there's a lot of gentle billionaires and da-da-da. Oh, here's a guy. And the more I know, that Phil guy told me that probably 10 years ago. Empires are built by blood, sweat, and violence. There's a little bit of truth to that. You may not want to. People who want to build an empire, I'm like, Joel Salatin, my first mentor, said, worst thing in life is to grow old and realize you got good at something you didn't want. A lot of people go, I want an empire, Tom. I'm like, but have you counted the cost? Because you will be going up against Genghis Khan guys. And in order to beat them, you will have to be more ruthless, and that will change you. So I'm not sure everybody should build an empire. Maybe what people call empires is small little things. But Elon Musk, I always say Vegas, there's a lot of dead bodies out in the desert to build Vegas. There's a lot of people got murdered. And in the Forbes list, the top 100, there's been quite a few hits that have gone down. I guarantee you there's bodies buried where it's like, I'm almost a billionaire. This guy's competing with me. He's going to have to disappear. They sent 75 grand to a Colombian guy, and lo and behold, they become a billionaire. So maybe not everybody should be a billionaire, but some people, I think it's some people's destiny. The world's better when some people become wealthy. I'm not a socialist like that. I'm a capitalist. But I just tell people, because now some people just want to pursue it because it sounds sexy. And I'm like, be careful you're that one, because you're going to enter an arena with badasses, Like it's like UFC. It's like, you sure you want to be the heavyweight champion of the world? Because to get there, you're going to have to have fought some 260-pound machines, and you get a little brain damage along the way. Muhammad Ali became the champion, but it does damage to you,
So you've been around the block.
I have a little bit.
When you take a look at everything that you've learned, are there things that you want in your life now that you wish you had 10 years ago? Like, what's become increasingly important to you?
Time machine. That's what I want.
Yeah, tell me what like time machines do exist in certain ways. Like I own jets. Like that's like a time machine, right? Like
time saver. Yeah.
Yeah. The muscle, Keaton Hoskins was just here with his helicopter.
Yeah.
He calls that his time machine.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we built this 35,000 square foot home with everything in it that we learned that we go out to society for. So we don't have to commute, and basically the world comes to us.
Yeah.
That's time machine.
You might be an introvert then. You think you're an introvert?
I think I've got a lot of extrovert. I spend a lot of time with a lot of people. At the end
how do you learn? So let me ask you a question. Me and you banter back and forth for an hour.
Yeah.
That's A. B is you read something, see something, something catches your eye, and then you go and internally process it. Which one do you learn better from? A or B?
The banter.
Okay, so you are an extrovert.
Yeah.
I always tell people, Carl Jung, who invented the word introvert, extrovert, if you read his books, he didn't define introvert, extrovert like we do now. He defined an extrovert as somebody who learns through the external world.
Yeah.
It's how you learn. So so it sounds like you are an extrovert.
Yeah, you put me in mentorship with somebody that has 10 times or 100 times what I want.
Yeah.
And just pick their brain over and over again.
Yeah.
That's how I'm going to, that's my favorite way of learning.
So what's your goal? Do you want 10 times what you have?
I got a lot of goals. One of them is I want to own 10,000 companies.
Okay.
I own 400 right now.
Okay.
And I have a private equity firm that's now racking up every week new companies.
Okay. Is it real estate stuff, or what's the?
It's private equity, everything.
Okay.
I want to own companies in every single industry.
Okay.
10 years from now, I want to be the entrepreneur's economist. I want to understand every facet of business in every industry, period.
Okay.
Part of that's because I get bored, but I also love seeing the commonality, and I also love when you can mix and match,
Right.
from different industries and create new output.
So that's the 10-year goal.
That's in the wealth category.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, I'm I do some bodybuilding. So I have my 4th show next year.
Nice.
And I'm gaining 20 more pounds right now. So I'm eating 6,000 calories a day.
Is it Olympia or?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Actually, I bought bodybuilding.com. So we
did
do
you really?
a lot in that space. Yeah. A couple
So
years ago.
I play in that space a little bit.
Okay.
And then, the other one is I've got 4 kids. So I spend a lot of time with my family right now.
Okay.
Got work dialed into about 25 hours a week.
Nice.
And that seems to give enough balance for the health, family, the spiritual, and then the business stuff is becoming, it's really just a game of vetting certain opportunities, assembling the right team, and then getting out of the way.
Is the private equity here in Utah? Mm-hmm. So you're acquiring how many, you said, a week or a day or
We're acquiring sometimes 2 to 4 companies a week.
So are you taking minority positions in them?
Sometimes it's like a 10% consult for equity kind of model. And then I go through probably several hundred a year to find 10 companies that we want to be a healthier 20, 30, 40, or 50% owner in that have like $1 billion plus potential.
So you start out with consulting for equity, get the foot in the door, and then move from there.
And then I basically find the winners.
So you can do that without capital on
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then except I do consult for equity a little bit different. I've got a 30 members on my board of advisors across my different companies that I basically assign someone a really high-level business coach. I give them access to my entire advisory board, and then I do a lot of their leadership and management trainings and culture trainings. So there's some done-for-you components. So it's a lot more involved than like a Roland Frazier model where it's just like you got Roland's cell phone. For me, it's just like my belief is if you want something done right, don't do it yourself. So it's always about bringing more people.
Yeah. So then when you do that, so are these, do you do VC, like your seed coming in when companies are early?
Sometimes.
Or what's normal? Are you doing companies already at 6-figure, 7-figure, 8? What's kind of the sweet spot to drop in?
Finding companies that have valuations between like $1 and $10 million. They sometimes need a little bit of capital, but they usually have proof of concept and they just need more white hair.
Yeah, that's a great model. I've seen people doing that. I've done some of that too. So I like that. I'm ramping some of that up. I've done bigger acquisitions, but one thing I've learned is, sometimes medium is good.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of medium-sized businesses and sometimes beat the two extremes. That middle ground is often a very smart place.
Well, if it's too small, it's the same lift for a lot less.
Yes.
And sometimes when it's too big, you lost the opportunity for the asymmetric upside.
Yeah, or they're too cocky to listen.
That
or the valuation that you get in at is where it's going to end up at. You get in a $1 billion valuation, it goes to 1.1.
Yeah.
There's not much upside, so yeah. That's good. Got a smart thing going.
It's a challenge. It's fun. We just had here at my event center two events back to back last week.
Yeah.
We released 5 companies that all have $1 billion plus potential.
Nice.
And a lot of fintech, a lot of SaaS.
That's good. This is good Silicon slopes, as they call it.
It's kind of like the new. There's quite a bit of tech in this space.
As I drive, I see all these tech companies on the freeway getting here. It's you got what's the one? A Podium is here. And you got there's that. I like the soft. People don't realize if you go to the Forbes list, the best raw mentor for learning about wealth is the Forbes list. It's updated every 10 seconds. You go there and you can just see patterns. It's pretty. The only thing it's not showing you is private money. So like Putin's probably the richest man in the world. You control armies, you're a trillionaire. Napoleon Bonaparte was a trillionaire. Adolf Hitler was a trillionaire. Putin's a trillionaire. Not to put them in the same class, but if you control an army, you're a trillionaire. And they don't show up on the Forbes list, but it's mostly public people, public money. But if you look there, 8 out of the 10 wealthiest people made their money in software. Software is an underrated thing. For those people who are intermediate to advanced, I'm pushing them all into software plays. Yep. I say I'm working on this booklet I'm going to release. I'm working on my big book. I've got a big publisher wants me to do 67 steps, but I'm going to do a pamphlet called The 5 Habits. You're one of the first people your show is one of the first ones I talk about. But the 5 habits to health, wealth, love, happiness. So they are reading, fasting, building, networking, breathing. And I give each of them a rule. So reading, that's the 5 mentor rule. You need 5 mentors in your life at any given time. And the reason you need books is because I get people saying, you don't need books, you can learn anything. I'm like, yo, motherfucker, some of the greatest minds are dead. You're not going to reach Aristotle, Socrates, Kant, Spinoza in a YouTube video. So you need books. So out of the 5 mentors, I say reading, but I really mean mentors.
Yeah.
2 could be from books. You need 3 in-person mentors in different areas. Some in health, some in love, some in money. The second habit is fasting, 5-hour rule. Most people, unless you're super skinny, you shouldn't eat even if you're skinny, unless you're 15 years old. But as an adult, 3 hours without food in the morning, 2 hours before bed. A little bit of intermittent fasting.
Now I want to hear this again. So 3 hours.
It's the 5-hour rule. So in the day, 5 hours of consciously not eating when most people would be. So first 3 hours when you wake up, that'll get you into the beginning of fasted state. You get some of the benefits. And then 2 hours before bed. People sleep bed. Don't fuck with your sleep. Big heavy meals right before you sleep are tough on you. So that's the 5-hour fasting rule. Then the next one is building, which is building wealth. That's the 5 asset rule. Software, brand, land, cash, crypto. These are the best things. This is what I tell my mom, tell anybody. Software has made 80% of the top 10 wealthiest people in the world. Elon Musk started with software, 2 software companies. Even Tesla software, and so is SpaceX. It has hardware and software. So you do software, then you build a brand around it. But the center is software. You look, Mark Zuckerberg, even Warren Buffett now plays in software. So
that's a shortcut right there for a lot of entrepreneurs. But that's a leap, because 6 years ago I got in my first software play and I was terrified.
Yeah,
because I'm just a dumb dirt guy. I'm familiar with real estate. I'm familiar with, but I'm never going to hit the multiples.
Yeah,
and I'm never going to get the acceleration unless I get into software. And I'm so glad I made that leap, because some of my front runner companies today are software companies.
Hell yeah.
And it was.
You talk about asymmetric, nothing touches the asymmetric potential.
Dude, I got this one going right now. We just launched literally MVP today. We've got 100 companies lined up to use this particular software. Yeah. By the end of the year, it's probably going to have a $250 million valuation. It has a 47x multiple.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's crazy.
And sometimes you can get 47x on top line, not even EBITDA.
Yeah.
Most of the time when people are talking of big multiples plus 10, you're talking on EBITDA or net. You get 47. You can actually get infinity, because there's software companies that have 0 or negative.
Correct.
Zero revenue. I'm not talking about EBITDA. And they'll sell for $1 billion.
Yep.
I mean, name anything in the history of mankind. You have real estate that has anything that has 0 revenue doesn't get valued at infinity X. So software. So you're coming at it from the 3rd asset backwards, which is fine. Software, brand, land. Best place, like Mark Twain said, buy land. They ain't making any more of it. I buy farmland. That's my play in the United States. So I own a lot of farmland. And so I like a physical asset. If the digital world gets crazy, you never know what's going to happen. It's good to own land or homes like you do. Then cash, you got to have some cash management. But then crypto is I put all the alts into that, all the alternatives to cash. So obviously Bitcoin, ETH, but also I put in there gold, silver, whatever bullets, whatever people float their boat. You need some alternative, because there is a non-zero chance that you have something crazy hit the world. A nuclear attack, a regression, like we saw a little bit of that in COVID, a big these attacks they could do on the grid. So I like asset-wise in the 5 habits, you need to spread out. But software leads, brand around the software, land, cash, crypto. So that's the 3rd. The 4th habit is networking, called the 5-finger rule. If you look at someone's hand, you can begin to see the beginning of personality. Nothing to do with astrology, superstition, palm reading. It's called digit index ratio. There's a ton of science. You can read the Wikipedia on it. But that's the beginning. To network well, you need to read people. So I have 12, I call it the 12 types. I'm working on actually new SaaS company that will help people hire better using this 12 types. It's the cutting edge technology. So you learn to read the 5 types of hormonal driven behavior in humans. And then last is breathing. It's easy to get stressed in the world. Make sure you take 5 deep breaths multiple times a day. Try to stretch it out for 30, 60 seconds. You know, Steph Curry, I like basketball a lot, and he's one of the great basketball players of all time. And recently, scientists have been trying to figure out, he's so clutch. You know, the game could be on the line. He hits the shot. They found when he goes to the bench at timeout, he can drop his heartbeat basically faster than anybody they've ever recorded. He can drop from, you know, his heart rate 140 or whatever, drop it to like 80 in like 30 seconds.
Amazing.
And that comes from breathing, ancient Tibetan monks. So it's not just like breathing for spiritual reasons, which is fine if you do that, but there's also a practicality of lowering your cortisol level. And actually what happens with humans when you're in a stress state, my best friend is a neuroscientist. The back of our head he always says, you got your brain stem here. They call it the reptile or the crocodile mind, the primitive. Then you got the medulla, the cerebellum. Then you have the amygdala. So all the way up here is all the primitive. And when we get scared and stressed, we start operating like without thinking. By breathing slower, you activate the front of the brain called the MPFC, your median prefrontal cortex, which is where we logically can think things through. So one of the reasons to breathe is to change the synaptic, kind of the neurons to fire up here, don't fire back here. And so it's easy in the modern world. And that's what, by the way, social media is doing harmful. It knows how to stimulate the back of the brain. So what stimulates the back of the brain? Scary news articles. The world's ending. Okay? That's not appealing to logic. It's appealing back here. Oh my God. In social media, stupid stuff going viral. You know, political arguments that are illogical. So most of what social media is pushing on us is just hijacking the back of our minds. So the reason I say 5 breaths to become happier is think things through. You know, I meet people and they're like, Tai, I'm so stressed out. And I'm like, let's talk about it. What's actually so stressful? And then they start to breathe through it. And it's like, I'm like, bro, you're healthy. You got both your legs. You live in the United States. You have opportunity. You're 25. Your whole life's in front of you, theoretically. Like, why are you stressed? And when they start to think through with the front of their brain after breathing, all of a sudden they're like, I can do this, you know?
Tai, is this going to be a book? You called it a pamphlet?
I'm going to make a booklet, I think.
You're going to make a booklet. You're going to put it out there. It's very, very specific.
Yeah.
I break your fasting rule. My coach has me eating.
Well, when you're bulking's different. You're kind of going first. You're in the superhuman. This 5 habits is more. My dad was a pro bodybuilder. My dad was Mr. Canada, Mr. Junior USA. He was actually on the cover of Mr. Universe, Joe Wieters, back in the 60s. So I grew up around bodybuilders. That's a different world. Yeah. You're not going to bulk by doing intermittent. But the average person in America is struggling with calories.
Yeah. So
they're not just bulking, they're dirty bulking.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm guessing you have pretty good self-control because most successful entrepreneurs have good conscientiousness. The average person doesn't have self-control. So by doing just this 5-hour rule, it starts to reprogram the brain as I don't have to eat exactly when I want to. And so you don't have to even do it forever, you know. But yeah, definitely don't do it if you're trying to be Mr. Olympia. You got to do the 5-minute rule there. Eat every 5 minutes. I have some friends. I used to train with Dorian Yates. I don't know if you know Dorian. He won like Mr. Those guys eat just insane. I was just in Iceland, and you know that's where the mountain is.
Yes.
There's a video. I think he ate 25,000 calories one time.
Jeez.
But he's a big dude. He's like 6'8", 450. So that's a dirty bulk, though. I think he says he didn't feel good after eating.
I can't imagine that you would.
25 super Big Mac meals is like.
So you're kicking off the next season of your life with this pamphlet. It's really about the balanced life.
Yeah.
And you're putting this really cool mastermind together, so you get to hang out with just a diverse group of ninjas that are up to really cool things, super exclusive, and you're back.
I hope so.
You're back from the sabbatical.
Knock on wood. I like that sabbatical. I hadn't thought of that word. I'm glad I came on here. I learned I was calling it a hibernation, but sabbatical sounds, I like it, more elegant.
Well, Tai, I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show. If you were to give a final thought or shout out to entrepreneurs in today's Biden economy, in the recession that no one's willing to name, what would you say to the average business owner out there that's they're struggling, they're considering shutting things down, or they're wondering whether they should double down?
Yeah.
What do you say?
Never give up is a good one. I read an autobiography of Geronimo. You know, the Indian that single-handedly almost held off the U.S. Army for a decade. And he wrote this little autobiography no one knows about. And he died in like 1901. And he looked back on his life. He was a successful guy, killed 1,000 people in hand-to-hand combat. If you consider, in his world, he was successful. Yes. He was a badass. And in the end, he said, I should have never surrendered to the U.S. Army. I should have died fighting. And so if you're an entrepreneur out there, you can retreat from a battle. I agree with that. You're in the wrong business model. The market's so you can retreat. Geronimo didn't say, I wish I hadn't retreated. He said he surrendered and he regretted that. So you never surrender. So you just regroup. Sometimes you fall back, you retreat, and you come back stronger than ever. But if you're considering just giving up and surrendering, remember what Thoreau said, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What's called resignation is just confirmed desperation. So when you surrender, you're just confirming that you live a desperate life. Don't do that. That's what everybody does. Be different,
Beautiful. Tai, thank you so much for being here today, brother. I really appreciate having you on the Kris Krohn Show.
Thank you.
If people want to learn more about you, where should they go?
TaiLopez.com, whatever's new. I got new courses, the booklets. I do some seminars. So TaiLopez.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. It's just @Tai Lopez.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I'm glad to have you here today.
I'm glad we met.